Here's what distro hopping actually is. It's a symptom of something we call shiny object syndrome, right? So what is shiny object syndrome? It's basically just jumping from one thing to the other in hopes that things are going to be better. Like basically grass is greener on the other side. Let me explain. So let's say that first you get started with a distro like Ubuntu, okay? Let's say you are an Ubuntu fan and this is your first distro. Okay, then after that, you learn about Ubuntu's crap and all about all the snap packages and flat packs and God knows whatever other stuff, other bloat that Ubuntu has going on. From there, you decide to switch to a distro like Pop OS. Okay, so then we move over to Pop, I think it was bang underscore OS. Okay, so this ends up being your second distro because you are unable to tolerate Ubuntu's crap. Great, then you use Pop! OS for quite some time. Let's say that you like all of its features. You're an NVIDIA user, so it has all of your graphics properly set up. You don't have to break your head about the graphics and whatnot. Okay, everything's cool. They've also shifted over to the Cosmic Desktop environment, which allows for a bit more customizability than GNOME 42 or whatever version GNOME is on. Okay, you enjoyed Pop! OS for some time, and now later on, you realize that you actually want more control. Because let's be honest, you are not normal. If you are watching a video about distro hopping and about shiny object syndrome, right? If you've listened to me talking for 2 minutes and about customizing stuff and doing all the other stuff that we do on this channel, like switching themes and customizing stuff so that we get better productivity, you can basically think and see like not many other people can, right? That is exactly why you're here. And because of which, you want to get more control. You want more control over your system, over everything that you have. You like customizability, you enjoy it, it makes you feel good, and you're probably a control freak, which is a good thing in today's world. Okay, so then you eventually transition over from training wheels, which would be Ubuntu and Pop! OS, over to the big boys, such as Arch Linux, right? So then we move over to Arch. Ta-da! That is going to be your third distro. Okay, now that you're on Arch, okay, you've enjoyed all of Arch's features, but then you figure out that there are actually a lot more Arch distros out there. You enjoyed Arch Linux's customizability. You liked the freedom that it gave you. It's never really shackling you to anything. You can keep whatever parts of your system that you want. You can get rid of whatever you want. Okay, provided that you don't get rid of essential stuff like the kernel. Like, come on, you're not going to get rid of the kernel and whatnot, right? You're going to keep all of that. But apart from that, you can just mix and match with whatever applications you want, whatever desktop environments, whatever window managers, Wayland compositors, stacking window managers, tiling window managers, and what else can we change? Lock screens and display managers, and there is a lot of stuff that you can mix and match, right? So you do all of that, and that is why you love Arch. But in Arch, we have a lot of Arch-based distros, right? Let's say, for example, we have a lot of the modern sort of pre-made like Arch-based distros. We have like Manjaro. Okay, so we have Manjaro. Honestly, Manjaro right now is probably not nowhere near as good as it once was. They they ruined it with I don't know what happened, but a couple of years ago, I believe it was like in 2022 or 23, there was some fiasco about the whole time being wrong thing. Something happened with Manjaro, and basically people don't use it as much as they used to before. But that is an option when you're using Arch. Okay, so you have Manjaro, and then another one you have is Endeavor OS. Okay, then apart from Endeavor, we have a couple of other ones. Like, let's see here. We have Arco Linux, even though it is discontinued. So we have Arco, and then we have Archcraft. Okay, we have Archcraft as well. And apart from that, you know, we can just go on and on, listing all the Arch-based distros, something like Crunchbang. Crunchbang is probably an Arch-based distro as well. Okay, so write that out. And the list goes on. We have a lot of distros, Arch-based distros. Now, at this point, what you're probably going to do is realize that Arch, like vanilla Arch, is not enough for your needs. And what you're going to do is probably just start flipping to all of these distros, just looking through every single one of them under the sun in order to like find one that's going to fit your needs. And if you're doing this for the first time, yes, that's good, because to be honest, you're not going to know what stuff is out there until you've actually used it, right? It's kind of like asking a newborn child what their favorite genre of music is. Like, a newborn child doesn't know anything, okay, except just crying, and asking it to list its favorite genre of music is not, it doesn't know anything, basically. So in this case, we might consider ourselves as a newborn baby when we haven't experienced all of these Arch-based distros. And so we go through all of that in order to build up an understanding. Okay, great. Let's say, for example, we've done all of this, but then, okay, we've tried out all of these distros. Okay, we've tried out all of it. We even eventually, I don't know, maybe we didn't pick Arch over here and we branched out to something like NixOS. Okay, something like NixOS, or we branched from here, Nix to something like Void Linux. Okay, Nix to Void, or directly from Pop! OS to Void, or from Ubuntu to Nix, or Ubuntu directly to Void, or Ubuntu to Nix to Void. If there's basically a lot of combinations, okay? You don't have to have followed this path specifically, but yes. Anyway, let's say after experiencing a bunch of distros and after using all the derivatives, let's say that you settle on a distro that you find and that you like. Okay, let's put on Cashy OS over here because that seems to be blowing up. Right? Cashy OS. Great, that one. Now, you come back to Vanilla Arch, but then one day you think, I seem to have had enough of Vanilla Arch, so I'm going to go try out some new stuff. Now, there are two ways that you can take this, right? You can either go and again try out all the distros that you had previously, okay? Or you can go out and try a bunch of new distros. Now, let me tell you why trying out a bunch of new distros at this stage, after you've already tried it, after you've already done all the distro hopping, after you've already wiped your disk like a million times before, and after you've already destroyed your hard drive, after you've done all of that stuff, after you've been through the trials and tribulations of being a Linux and Hyprland user, which, trust me, I have been there, okay? I would not have been able to get to where this point is, making theme switchers that automatically adapt to whatever mood you want, right? Being able to make all of this stuff, right? Wouldn't have been able to do that without breaking all my shit lots of times. So yeah. Oh, and by the way, if you want to know how to make a theme switcher like this, along with like adapting colors and whatnot, without having to waste any of the time and break your device and hard drive and disk and whatever I did, right? If you just want to skip straight to the good stuff and without any of the bad stuff, just click the first link in the description right now. I show you exactly how to do this, and the amount that you're going to invest in it is truly worth it. Like, trust me. If you're a person who values your time, and if you're not like everybody else, which, trust me, like, if you're watching this video, I know for a fact that you're not going to listen to some guy rambling about shiny object syndrome and explaining distro hopping for like 5 minutes or however long this is, if you're smart, basically, in a way. So just click the first link in the description. You have nothing to lose. Check it out. It's going to be the best investment you'll have ever made in your life. Like, trust me. Okay, now that that's done, back to what I was saying. Yeah. So you do all of that, and you would have settled on a distro for a reason, right? Let's be honest. Okay, let's say that the distro that you settled on wasn't Arch, but it was something like Pop! OS. Or let's say that you were able to tolerate Ubuntu's stuff and that you didn't really care about any of the snaps because it got your stuff done and because it was software that you had to use for your work. Okay? Great. You settled on a distro after trying out everything else. Now think about why you actually settled. Because if you weren't satisfied with that one distro, you would have been distro hopping all day long. And we know that that is an endeavor that just doesn't end. So yes, you would have picked the point I'm trying to make here is you would have picked a distro for a reason. Maybe because of its stability, if you pick something like Pop! OS or Ubuntu. And you know what? Contrary to popular belief, I have never had Arch break on me once. Okay, in all the more than 3 years, in fact, that I've been using Arch Linux and Rising Hyprland and all that stuff, Arch has never broken on me once. And I'm pretty sure that it's never going to, because if you do your part right in maintaining your distro, not doing downgrades, silly downgrades of individual packages and not updating selective packages, you can keep your distro working perfectly fine. There is absolutely no need to reinstall your machine unless you have OCD like I used to. Now, it's gotten a bit better, granted, but still, you're just going to have to fight the urge of wiping and reinstalling every single time you feel like you've dirtied your installation by installing too many packages. That is a nightmare that takes like work to get out of, but it's definitely possible, right? So again, point being, you switch and use a particular distro for a reason. And that reason is something that you must not forget. So back to what I was saying earlier, right? Let's say that you were using Arch Linux, but then you switch to another distro. Okay, let's say from here you switch to Nix. Okay, from this, you decide that Nix is not good for you, and then you switch to these distros again and again and again. Okay, use them for like a day, half a day, less than a day even. You get disgusted by them because there's a reason why you weren't on them in the first place, right? So after all that, what do? You again come back to Arch. So it's like a cycle. You can think of it this way. It's like a cycle. You have like Arch. Okay, then from Arch, you go to something like vanilla Arch. Okay, I should mention this is vanilla Arch. Okay, so from vanilla Arch, you go to another distro that's popular. You something like Manjaro, if you still use that. Okay, Manjaro. And from Manjaro, KDE. Okay, if we're getting specific, this was the exact route that I followed. So I went from Pop! OS to Manjaro KDE to a bunch of other distros, but basically that, right? So Vanilla Arch to Manjaro KDE, and from here, you go to something like Cashy OS. You don't like it for whatever reason. It's got a lot of stuff that you don't use. Maybe it's the excess amount of packages. Maybe your OCD gets the better of you. Okay, Cashy OS. And from there, you go to something like Arctix Linux. Oh, yes, I had not covered this. Now, it is an Arch-based distro, but then it switched out the init system. Then we move on to something like Arctix Linux with a different init system, something like S6 or Runit. S6 or Runit, or what other init systems do we have these days, man? Something like OpenRC, any one of these, okay? And by the way, if you're wondering what an init system is, it's basically the process that runs on your machine with the PID of 1. It's the PID of 1. Get this, all this stuff. So it basically controls the execution of all of the processes and stuff. You can go look it up for like a simple definition. The init system is like basically the first process that starts up and starts all the other processes in your system. So if I just open htop and show you, okay, htop, and then I show you PID 1, I'm gonna have to scroll for quite a while because there's a lot of processes, but you get the idea. I can just, let's see if I can get, okay, we can just run psaux and grep PID of 1. Okay, now that won't work. Anyway, yeah, just know that your init system is basically the program that starts up first and starts all the other processes. Hence, it's given the PID 1. Great. Now, from Arctix Linux, you decide that, not having systemd is actually too much of a hassle, and that people who say that systemd sucks really are missing out a lot on customizability. Okay, this is my personal opinion, by the way. You don't have to agree. You can go use Arctix Linux if you want, right? As long as you're on Hyprland. Anyway, right. Right. So from Arctix Linux, you again go back to Vanilla Arch. And after some time, like after like for a year and a half or 2 years, you realize that Vanilla Arch is kind of boring. I don't really like this. I want to go on to something else. And then maybe you don't pick Manjaro KDE, but then you repeat the cycle elsewhere. And you go to something like NixOS. Oh no, that's a lot of complexity that I do not like. Let's not do that. And then you go to something like Pop! OS. I like the nostalgia and I like the cosmic desktop environment. But I forgot that I can also get that on Vanilla Arch. So I'm just going to go to Pop! OS, maybe see if things are better over there. Okay, no, things are not better over there. Let me see if I've got something else, and something else, and something else, something else. And so it goes on and on and on and on and on until finally we come back to the distro we love most, which is Vanilla Arch, at least in my case. This is the sort of death trap that some of us, okay, most of us, at least in the beginning, have gotten ourselves into. Distro hopping, which is basically shiny object syndrome. We're hopping from one shiny object to the other. So at first, Vanilla Arch used to be a shiny object, but then we've used the object so much that it's not shiny anymore. Then we move on to something else that's shiny, 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 shiny. Eventually, we get sick and tired of the shininess. We come back to our senses, and then we go back to what we know and love. Now, what's the cure to this? Me rambling on about shiny object syndrome and Ubuntu and Pop! OS and Arch for 10 minutes is all well and good, but how do we actually solve this? How do we get rid of shiny object syndrome? Now, the reality and the totality of this situation, right? Just use a more complex word to describe a simpler word, but anyway, right? The reality is that basically fixing it in one area, like this area, for example, like distro hopping, is actually going to help you out in a lot of other areas of life. So your brain, it cannot tell the difference between jumping from one thing to the other in your Linux distro life and like jumping from one opportunity to the other in your like real life. Your brain basically uses the same pattern recognition system everywhere, which is why fixing it in here is going to help you out in other aspects of life too. So just a little bonus. Okay, now let's get to actually fixing shiny object syndrome for good. How do we go about doing this? Well, this is actually pretty simple once you understand the concept that I'm just about to explain. Took me quite a while to get to this point, but trust me, if you're still here, you're smart as hell. I know it. It's worth it. Trust me. Okay. Now, fixing shiny object syndrome for good. You can boil it down to one statement, and that is new is bad, old is good. Simple. So if you make this, right, I got to put it in bold just to emphasize it properly. But if you make this your new mission statement when it comes to opportunities, okay, you will avoid a lot of the pitfalls that people have to go through, a lot of the suffering that people put themselves through, jumping from one thing to the other. And here's another side point that I forgot to mention earlier. We have a cycle known as the emotional cycle of change. Okay, so it goes a little something like this. Whoop, something like this. Okay, so let's say that this is let's say that you're starting on a new endeavor. Like, let's say you start using Vanilla Arch for the first time, or you use something like NixOS for the first time. I have not used Nix before, so I think that it's complicated because I haven't tried it out. But using Nix, okay, using Nix. So what happens? We have 5 stages. So here we have uninformed optimism. Uninformed optimism. This is the first stage. Okay, then after uninformed optimism, we have informed pessimism. Okay, now in this stage, we have informed pessimism. Informed pessimism. Then after that, we have a stage. Whoops. We have a stage known as the Valley of Despair, which is right over here. So that's going to be the Valley. What is that? Valley of Despair. And then we have informed optimism and success and fulfillment. So right over here. Come on. We have informed optimism. Type that out. Informed optimism. And then finally over here, we have success and fulfillment. Success and fulfillment. Success and fulfillment. Okay, now I'm just going to explain this change, right? This cycle. This is called the emotional cycle of change, by the way. Now, uninformed optimism. Let's say it's the first time that I'm going to use Nix. I have no clue what it's about, so I am optimistic about it, but then this optimism is uninformed. So I don't know anything about it, which is why I think that I know stuff about it and that I can figure everything out myself, and I don't need any sort of trainer or like guide to guide me. Now, the same thing could actually be used to rise Hyprland. You know what? This would actually be even more effective if I use the rising Hyprland example. So let's just get rid of this. Why is that? Whoops. So we'll just get rid of this, and then we'll put in Hyprland. Hyprland. Okay. Rising. Hyprland. Great. Now, uninformed optimism. Because we haven't rised it before, let's say we have not gained as much experience related to how hard the thing is actually going to be. So we're pretty optimistic in our own skills that we can do this. Then once we actually start doing it for some time, our sort of confidence and emotional, resilience and motivation basically goes down. And here we're in the stage called informed pessimism. So here we learn about the mountains and the struggles and the basically almost what do you call it? Yeah, basically we just learn that there's a lot of stuff to do and that we won't be able to do everything ourselves, and that we would be much better off learning this stuff from a guide. Right, from a guide, so that we don't have to waste our time, so we don't have to do any soul searching, like literal soul searching when it literally comes to rising Hyprland. So we realize that in the informed pessimism stage. Okay, now this point, the Valley of Despair, is actually quite a critical point. Now let me tell you why. There are two options from here, okay? You can either go this way, okay, and then you can catch a new informed optimism stage. Okay, you see where this is going? You can catch a new uninformed optimism stage over here by switching to a different opportunity. Let's say you don't want to rise Hyprland anymore at this Valley of Despair sort of fork in the road, but then you choose to rise something like, I don't know, an X11 window manager. Let's say you want to go back to BSPWM, or you want to pick something like Neri, rising Neri. Okay? That in this case would also be uninformed optimism, which would then lead into informed pessimism, which would again lead to a Valley of Despair. You can see where I'm going with this. This is kind of like a spiral. So if you choose over here to, let's say, not rise Neri as well, let's say you want to go to something else, what you do here is basically just quit again, and then the cycle goes on again, like so. That is one option, one path that you can take when you're in the Valley of Despair. But there is another path that you can take. Let's say that you know the perils of going down this road, going down the infinite road of just switching from opportunity to opportunity. You know this cycle, right? You know this cycle. And so you choose to completely avoid the cycle and just bear through it and get help from a person, from an expert who's been doing this for like 3 years. That's me, if I would say so myself, right? So yeah, you basically finally decided to take the plunge because you're smart. You know that doing this is basically a huge waste of your time and that you would rather pay to get what you want much quicker and faster than everybody else. And that's what you decide to do over here. Let's say in the Valley of Despair, you choose to prioritize education and investing in yourself. And what happens over here? What happens over here is that you start to slowly get better and better at the skill of rising Hyprland to the point where again you can make theme switches like this one. Ta-da. Okay. And eventually you get to informed optimism. Okay. Then at this stage, what happens is you know the roadblocks and the struggles that you have to encounter in the future. You know how to encounter, or rather how to solve problems that you have obviously solved before, and you know how to tackle new problems that you don't yet know how to solve by asking for support from a person who's already done it, or by going to just basically read a lot of the wiki, right? Reading a lot of the wiki. The actual methods of your gaining information and stuff doesn't matter that much, but you're basically informed that things are hard, but I'm still going to stick through it. And that's that. That's for this stage. And then finally, we get to the success and fulfillment stage, which is where we have gotten to a pretty good level of the skill of rising Hyprland. Ta-da! Success and fulfillment. That's what it's about. Now, this cycle you can obviously apply to everything else. You can apply this thing to fitness. You can see how it would just adapt immediately, right? Your mind's just giving you the picture of what it would look like when applied to fitness. You can apply this to something like, oh, I don't know, like consistency in habits or something like that. Basically, a lot of stuff, right? This. And that should be how you conquer shiny object syndrome. Knowing and understanding the emotional cycle of change and remembering this quote. This is something that you have to put in bold, you have to emboss it, gild it, and then just basically put it on your wall. New is bad, old is good. Stick to this, and then you will truly be able to do extraordinary stuff like you were meant to. Now, if you want to make a setup like this, like I showed you earlier, where we've got the theme switchers along with all of the other stuff, okay? Just click the first link in the description right now, and I pretty much show you exactly how to make this stuff. Trust me when I say it's extremely effective. You can go check out the testimonials that others have like put onto the page and stuff, like another image where I have that existing customers. Basically, it's great. People who've already bought the program love it, and you're going to love it too if I say so myself. So just click the first link in the description right now, check it out, and I will see you next time.